Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda, and I'm excited to be here. It is Friday, February 20th, and it's late. It's after 8 o'clock, and I am just now sitting down to working on this podcast because it's taken me quite some time to figure out the new equipment and the settings. So we are still sitting in the same room, but we are in a different corner now. We're not in the northern corner, we're in the southern corner. And I had this vision for what I wanted. For those of you on YouTube, you'll be able to understand because you're actually watching, but for anybody on audio, I had this vision of what I wanted my background to look like. I have my laptop in front of me because I don't really have a table yet, and I don't have like a teleprompter, so I'm just making this up as I go. But then behind me, I had this vision of sitting in a chair with like a wall of photos of like places that I've traveled or the Americana kind of stuff that I have. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. The way that my office is laid out, the easiest way for me to film, I think, is in the corner with the Americana things. And I'm sitting in this chair that my mom gave me, and she was very gracious to give me these mid-century modern chairs, that they are quite low to the ground. So when I'm sitting here, I can't help but be like, please don't look at my stomach, because the way that I'm scrunched in here, every roll that I have is now on the internet. So yay. Can't wait for the trolls to tell me I'm a fat single bitch, but whatever. Anyway, I promise this is supposed to be a happier episode. I'm in a better mood these days. The sunshine came out today. It felt like 60 something instead of being winter. So I'm sure it'll be 12 degrees tomorrow just to bite me in the butt. It'll be okay. You know, this is a season where everything is ebbing and flowing, and literally everything is good, everything is bad, everything is meh at the same time. So it just kind of is what it is, and we're rolling with it. We're doing the best we can with what we've got. So hi, welcome back. I'm sorry it's taken me a few days to kind of get things sorted, and I've been working a lot. We have a lot going on at my office, so quite honestly, the podcast just doesn't take the priority that I want it to take, but this is still a fun endeavor for me, so I want to keep it going and I want to stay connected with you. And I know one of my videos on my TikTok really kind of blew up. The one that I posted about, how to pivot like a pro was the cover, but the point of the story was just kind of to introduce that I am a casualty of the great millennial career crisis that's going on right now. And the turmoil for the middle class, economically, socially, mentally, physically, we're taking on so much to prepare for the future. And yet so many of us are feeling the devastating losses and the difficulties right now economically and with our jobs. And I have so many friends that want to pivot and they want to grow and they want to progress in their lives, but they're finding it really hard to either pay off the debts, but then accrue good debt, buying a home or moving to a city they want to move to, or they want to get a raise at their company. But if a lot of them are still government contractors, they're lucky to even have a contract because so many contracts were cut in 2025 and were not renewed. And so now they all have all this experience that they can't get hired for because in the private sector, nobody's hiring. Or if they are hiring, they want you to have all the experience with all the degrees, but they want to pay you closer to entry level or mid level. Quite honestly, if you make $100,000 now across America, $100,000 is lower middle class. And that used to be a goal for so many of us and for so many people. And I find that so hard to believe and devastating to believe that there's so many of us that are just treading water. I'm just envisioning myself with like water all the way up to my neck, and I'm just trying not to freak out. And I'm lucky in a lot of comparisons. I'm in a good position because I'm able to be with my family. I'm able to save money and live here with them for a while. But if you're having a life that's similar to mine, where you're living in a moment where this is not what I thought I would be doing in my 30s, this is not where I thought I would be, this is not the path that was supposed to unfold for me, I get it. Trust me, I get it. I'm literally doing it still now. And there are parts of me that sometimes regret leaving the government. Maybe I should have given it a longer chance or a better shot. And then other parts of me are extremely grateful that I'm not in the government right now because of everything that's been going on with the administration and the fact that I probably would have been fired eventually anyway because of the cases that I had worked while I was at the Bureau. Those cases and those groups were targeted specifically and let go specifically. So maybe I just dodged my own early bullet. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Most of the time when I talk to friends that are still in the industries, they're stressed, to say the least. So I just want to give, again, another shout out to my friends and my family and my coworkers that are still in the fight. For any of you that are still out there and you're still working for the government and you're still doing everything you can to help the American people, I appreciate you. I'm proud of you and I'm grateful for you. I'm glad that you're there. I'm glad that you're standing up for us. I'm glad that you are still working cases, and I'm glad that you are still trying to bring justice to people who deserve it. And I hope that you will keep the original mission at your forefront and in your mind, because I'm really afraid that it's going to get a whole lot worse before it ever gets better. So I'm here for you and I'm proud of you, and I'm honored to have either known you, worked with you, or been alongside you during some of the early tumults of the 2020s. So just wanted to put that PSA out there. I don't get to actually say that a lot. I don't know how many of you listen to these episodes and think that I regret everything or hate everyone or talk down about my old life. And that's not the case at all, really. It was a privilege to be there. It was an honor to be there. And I wish that what I had wanted to get out of it could have happened for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what my friends and colleagues are still doing doesn't mean that that's not meaningful. If it's meaningful to them and they get joy out of their job, or they get satisfaction and fulfillment from what they're doing, then I hope that they still feel that way despite everything that's going on out there in the world, politically or non-politically. So I will always have respect for people in law enforcement that are, doing everything they can to live ethically and take care of people, take care of the law, and make sure that it's actually executed appropriately. But that's all I'm going to say on that. Today I kind of wanted to touch a little bit more on a couple of miniature themes, little things that I've been posting about recently. I kind of wanted to pull that all together. If you follow me on social media, on my TikTok and Instagram, I have posted a couple different videos using a sound. I believe it's from Alan Watts. The audio, when I found it from another creator, did not have the credit attached to it, so I don't technically know if it came from Alan Watts. But Alan Watts is a British philosopher and writer who was known for interpreting and popularizing Eastern philosophy, which includes, Zen, Taoism, Hinduism, for Western audiences. And so he has a whole lot of quotes about mindfulness, the illusion of your ego, the nature of time, and the idea that your life should be treated as a play rather than just a chore. And so he has lots and lots of quotes, and I believe this was one of his. So I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to kind of just talk about it, because this particular quote really hit home for me. And if I had heard the quote back in 2022, when I was struggling so much with trying to decide whether or not to change my job, I think this would have validated a bit of the uneasiness that I was feeling all the time. So I'm going to read that to you. So in the audio, he says, "You're allowed to change your mind about what you want, about who you are, about what you thought would make you happy. The version of you from 5 years ago didn't know everything that you've lived through since. And maybe that dream doesn't fit anymore. Maybe that path you fought for now feels more like a cage than a calling. That's not failure. That's growth." And I just loved it, especially the last part. Maybe that dream doesn't fit anymore. Maybe that path you fought for now feels more like a cage than a calling. That's not failure, that's growth. And I used to think that I was getting uncomfortable at my job because I was doing something wrong. I thought, okay, Maybe, Amanda, maybe you're being antagonistic. Maybe you're being a stick in the mud. Maybe you're judging Philadelphia because you don't have any family here and the only friends you have are at work. Like maybe, all the impacts of COVID are making you feel more stuck because you can't go anywhere and there's all these rules and restrictions in place. Maybe, once that levies up, it might get better. Maybe you just haven't figured out what the political game is in this office. Like you understood headquarters pretty well, you understood Quantico pretty well, but maybe for some reason this field office just works differently. Like I kept wanting to either blame myself or blame the environment or blame anything for why I felt so uncomfortable and why I felt so devastated all the time and disillusioned with what I was trying to build and create and what I wanted to do with myself and my career. I didn't really put two and two together that I was just growing outside of that box. I was getting uncomfortable and upset with how, red taped everything was and the literal in the name bureau, the bureaucracy that we were up against to get even the simplest tasks done or to get straightforward answers. And, just the politics of who goes where, how to distribute resources, what's going on, why, the reasoning behind whatever decisions management would have been making at the time or whatever. And, the quote is right. My path had become more of a cage than a calling. When I was 18, 19, when I first stumbled on this as a possibility of a career, it kind of just clicked for me. The same way I really just loved all my psychology classes and neuroscience classes was just, this makes sense to me. This is easy. I could take these tests in my sleep. I could write these essays in my sleep. I can pass these tests. This human behavior, human cognitive functioning, anatomy and physiology, neuropsychopharmacology classes, it makes sense to me because I've always been enlightened by or intrigued by human behavior, and I wanted this. I wanted this more than anything. So I never fathomed that my dream could turn into a cage. So I didn't really understand what was happening to me. And I realize now, hindsight being 2020, I looked back on that girl and that friction and that uncomfortableness I was feeling internally and externally in the office was that dream breaking down, was that path crumbling beneath me. It was that conversion of a calling turning into a cage, and I was outgrowing it. But I beat myself up. I waited a long time to try and transition out because I thought I was going to be considered a failure. I thought I would look like a loser or a liar, not necessarily a liar, I guess, but that I would give up too easily. I had a lot of pride about following through on something, that I had the discernment to know when things were going well or not well, or like when people were, be trying to pull the wool over my eyes or something like that. How could a young woman as analytical or as smart as I was not see what was happening right in front of her? Why did it take her so long to figure this out? Why did she spend all this money on degrees if she's not going to use them? And one of my most deep-rooted irrational fears is that I would become a disappointment to the people that I care about. And everybody's always saying, you're not supposed to care about other people's opinions. You're not supposed to care about what people think of you. You're not supposed to care about living up to other people's expectations other than your own, I suppose. But that's what really got me, was that I thought if I walked away from this dream, if I walked away from this cage, if I walked away from this calling, I would then become a failure and a disappointment. And I didn't want that. But the longer that I lived in a life that wasn't aligned with who I was as a person, the longer I lived in a life that challenged my integrity, the longer that I lived in a life that asked me to change in order to fit in, that asked me to challenge my ethics in order to survive or in order to be promoted, I didn't want to do that. I didn't like that. I didn't want to shape shift. I wanted to be me. I was good at my job. I wanted to do my job. That was it. But after a while, when you keep banging your head against the wall, something's got to give. Either the wall's got to come down or you've got to go to the ER and get brain surgery because you've busted your own skull in. But I think that that's what was happening to me, was this poem. I was so afraid of being a failure. I was so afraid of being a disappointment that I subconsciously did not believe that I was allowed to change my mind. I did not believe that I was allowed to do something different when the first option didn't work out. I thought I had to follow through on who everyone else thought I was, who everyone else envisioned me to be. Would they still be proud of me if I left this prestigious role? I was doing something that no one in my family had ever done before, and I was only in it for 10 years. Like, is that pathetic? Is that silly? I know it was risky. It's risky as hell to leave a guaranteed position, a guaranteed role in theory, right? Like before the administration changes and all that stuff. I took a massive risk leaving something that in theory had a guaranteed career, had a guaranteed output. You put in your 20, you get your pension, you can pivot in your fees or early fees to a whole other career if you wanted to as a security expert in whatever type of national threat you were working. You could go to private sector, get paid oodles of six figures. Again, in theory, all pre-COVID, all pre-administration changes. But I was terrified, right? I was terrified of that image. I was terrified of becoming a disappointment. And it just never occurred to me, you're allowed to change your mind. And that flows into pretty much your entire existence, right? You're allowed to change your mind if you walk into a room and you think you know what's going on, but you meet a lot of other people that are experts or who have different opinions from you, who shed new light or new information. You don't have to keep your old opinion when you learn new information. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to expand your intelligence. You're allowed to expand your experience. When you get into a relationship and you think you're attracted to that person and initially it's going great. Maybe the first, 3 months are blissful, but by the fourth month, you start to really learn who each other are. And they have certain tics or they have certain habits that you really don't like that ick you out. Or maybe you start to realize your value systems are not actually aligned. Then you break up. That's you changing your mind. Just because you started into a relationship doesn't mean that you have to stay in it forever if you realize that it's not the right fit. Like, duh, Amanda. I just, when I was in the thick of it, when I was really in that timeline grief, when I was deep in that hole of my identity breaking down and me not realizing that that's what was happening, the idea of changing my mind was just, it felt horrible. It didn't feel like the right decision because it felt like I was betraying who I once was or who I was at the time. And everybody else was asking me to betray myself. And the last person I wanted to betray was me. The last person I wanted to listen to that I should continue the betrayal would have been myself. But if I had actually stayed there, I don't know that things necessarily would have gotten any better. I definitely don't think they would have gotten worse. I liked the team that I was working with the last few months I was there. They were great. And that was one of the crimes against children and human trafficking squads. And they were all incredibly hardworking, respectful, funny, engaging and patient and very helpful. I loved working with all the different analysts that were also assigned to that team and the SOSs and specialists. I guess they'd probably call them something else now because I think they were changing the name by the time I was leaving, but the tactical analysts essentially. If I was an operational analyst, they would have been a tactical one. They saw the worst of the worst in people in their cases, but they were some of the best people that I worked with the entire time I was living there. So I am grateful for that temporary period that I got to sit with them and work with them and hopefully support them in a good way. I miss that aspect of the job. Walking into work every day, knowing that the 8 to 10 to 12 hours I put in meant something. It impacted someone else directly. That part of the job I will always miss. And I think any job in the future that I go after or I try to participate in, that's what I want it to feel like. I don't know if I would ever have the opportunity to work on, a human trafficking related project or anti-human trafficking project or, sex slavery projects or volunteering for, crimes against children situations. I know there's a lot of NGOs and things like that out there, other organizations that are doing this work day in and day out, doing international and domestic support with law enforcement. I would say yes in a heartbeat if something like that ever came up. So I miss that aspect of it, but the breakdown that I was having internally came from this whole problem of me thinking I really wasn't allowed to change my mind, and that if I did change my mind, it would turn me into a failure. And it's simply not true. You can change your mind about what you want, about who you are, about what you thought would make you happy. You can change your mind when you learn something new. You can change your mind when you get bad news. You can change your mind when you put on your clothes. The power of choice is what's going to get you out of feeling stuck. The power of embracing your own autonomy is key. You have the ability to choose what to do with your life. You have the ability to make that change. You have the ability to change your mind. I hate it that it's that simple, but it really is. You are not beholden to anything else except your own intuition and how you feel about yourself. Ideally, don't be an asshole, right? Don't go around ruining other people's lives or days or being mean for the sake of being mean. We're over it. We're beyond that. You need to go do some self-healing. You don't really hate her or him. You hate yourself, and that's why you act that way. But when you're stuck and you're feeling lost and you're feeling completely alone, frustrated, fragile, angry, disconnected from the life you thought you would have, your greatest strength right now is your autonomy and your own ability to make decisions about your life, because you are always allowed to change your mind, even when it feels like a trap, even when it feels like you actually don't have options, even when it feels like the dream you've always wanted is crumbling beneath you, even when it feels like, what is it, the catch-22? Both decisions are terrible. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, whatever. Your ability to choose what to do next, your ability to choose the first step you want to take, your ability to choose what you want. That's how you get unstuck. Leaning into that autonomy, leaning into the power of choice, leaning into the fact that you can always change your mind. Always. Just because you made a certain decision and it didn't work out doesn't mean everything's ruined for forever. It might be messy for a while. It might be really difficult for a while. It might be really painful for a while. But it's not forever. And just because you start down one path doesn't mean you can't start walking back or walk the other way. Isn't there that kind of saying, the longer you stay on the wrong train, the longer it's going to take for you to get back home or get back in the right direction, So hop off that train, get off at the next stop, change your mind. You're always allowed to change your mind. So that's kind of the biggest lesson I wanted to give here, is that if you're struggling with trying to make a decision the way I was, because you're worried what other people might think, you're worried how the decision will be received, you're worried about what it's going to look like for you to completely pivot and do a 180. Everybody's pivoting right now. Everyone. There's absolutely nobody, I promise, even maybe not little kids, of course, because they're not worried about a whole lot yet, but it is essential to the human condition that you are going to struggle and you're going to have ups and downs in your life. But it is a crucial skill to become someone that knows how to pivot. And deciding to pivot is just another moment in your life where you're changing your mind. All right, this didn't work. I'm going to try this instead. All right, this still isn't working. Maybe I shouldn't be here anymore. Maybe I should try something new. That's okay. So that's really the message I wanted to put home today, was just that again, I'm sorry it's taking me a while to get onto these episodes. There's been a whole lot going on at my office, and I have to make that a priority. I only just now figured out all this technology to put all this stuff back together, and I'm a mess. It feels like a mess, but it is what it is. So I'll keep trying to put out episodes as soon as I can, when I can. But unfortunately, I think this particular section or season of the show, it's just a little slower, and that's how it goes. Remember, you are always allowed to change your mind about what you want, about who you are, about what you thought would make you happy. And if you're stuck in a place where you're starting to realize that the path you've chosen doesn't fit anymore, it's okay. Because maybe that path that you're on right now is starting to turn into more of a cage than a calling. And that's not you becoming a failure. That's you dealing with uncomfortable growth, which is completely normal. But that's all I have for you guys for this week. I love you. I mean it. Thank you so much for all the engagement and comments so far. I'm glad that you guys liked that first, pivot like a pro video. I'm going to try and cut up some more clips and put those out there as well and keep that little series going. But if you would like to follow along, please share this episode. Please share this show with any friends, family, people that you think would appreciate it, or at least it'll help them feel a little less alone in the world. I love that. I love trying to help people because that's the whole goal of this show, is to help other millennials and people like me not feel like they're going crazy because what they wanted out of their life is not panning out and it's not turning out the way that they wanted it to, and they don't understand why. There's lots of reasons why, but this crazy great millennial career crisis is quite the emotional wave to deal with. And if you're doing it all on your own, that's a really tough thing. So please share this show with anybody and everyone that may be going through a tough time right now. If they're feeling lost, if they're trying to change their life, if they're trying to deal with a tough transformation, whether that's their career, their relationships, their family, their businesses, anything that you think they could benefit from, please share the episode, share the show, put it on your social media account, tag me. I reply to as many as I can see, as I get. I love it. So you can always find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Everything is under @Podcast for the Lost. You can also email me if you have questions or you want to partner on anything. hello@podcastforthelost.com. Our website is also podcastforthelost.com. So everything's linked and interconnected there. Follow along. We're on Substack as well. Podcast for the Lost on Substack. And yeah, that's all we've got for this week. I love you guys. Have a wonderful week. I'm going to go see my nephew tomorrow, so I'm really excited to see him. He's such a little squish. He'll be 8 months. Well, ish, right? Because it's February. He was born on the 30th of June. So we shall see. Technically, 8-ish months. But I love him. He's so adorable. I'm so excited. But anyway, I digress. I love you guys. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for listening. And remember, you're not alone. The path is just hot garbage, and now you got to find a new one. So thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll catch you later on the next episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, put 5 stars out there. It helps the show, helps my show so much. And send me any recommendations you have. If you have episodes that you really liked from a different creator, if you have guests that you think would be really good for the show, send them my way and I will do my best to try and get them to join us. So that way we can chit chat and hang out with your favorite people. So I'll catch up with you soon. Have a wonderful week. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.